Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
So, Matthew, do you want to get us started, or do I want to get us started on this episode?
Who wants to get us started? I want to welcome everybody to Talking About the Big Stuff. This is our special annual Valentine's Day bash that we're streaming early because I'm traveling for business next week and will be separate from my Valentine's on Valentine's. And it's also episode number 69, which is, of course, the number of love. So we are going to be talking about love. Not really. We're talking about sex. We're talking about sex, baby. So
sex, the kind you clean up with a mop and bucket, like the lost catacombs of Egypt. Only God knows where we stuck it.
No, I was talking about sex like you and me, baby. We ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel.
I didn't know if you would know that song. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Every once in a while, I know something that's less than 30 years old.
It's not that much less than 30 years old anymore.
That's why I was thinking I better not say 10. It's probably like 20, so I better go with 30.
I think it was 99. Yeah. All right. So we're talking about sex. I have been married.
I have had the sex.
I've been married 9.5 years. So I have been having sex for at least 9.5 years. I remember my wedding night like it was, just yesterday.
Really? Can you picture it now?
No, I don't picture it. Yeah. So no, I don't want to. Even though this is about sex, I don't want to talk about. Well, I mean, I'm not saying we can't talk about our own sex lives to some extent, but
no. Let's stay married. Let's not talk about our own sex lives.
Yeah, we can just talk about our sex life together.
No, that's easy.
Yeah. No, I want to talk about sex in a slightly more mature. I actually think I was
Euclidean.
Euclidean. No, I was. It was funny. I was driving home today, thinking about the 2 episodes recording and all the things we wanted to talk about, and I was like, it'd be really funny if the sex episode is the episode that's the cleanest episode that we do for a while.
It will be.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway. Your favorite kind of sex is coming up too.
What's my favorite?
Your favorite thing in sex? Cat asshole. My gloves when you show your butt.
Yep.
So I just want to show my pussy on camera.
Anyway, let's have a mature discussion about sex, because sex, as my first bullet point says today, is a human need.
For some humans.
Agree or disagree? Yeah, I mean, it's true. I don't want to like. I don't mean for a sex. I don't want to I don't want to, I want to exclude asexual people from that, and but like, for a good majority or a good portion of people, sex is a need that, if they reach physical maturity, puberty, basically, they will feel some desire for that. That is help. The desire itself isn't.
It is not an unusual thing for the majority of people to desire the sexes.
Right, but also there is like a lot of benefit, and there's like they talk about how men have less chance of having prostate cancer if they are regular ejaculating.
I'm gonna live forever.
Yeah, but seriously though, like to say that there is a need, I think, is true to some extent for the average person. So it's important that we discuss it, or it's important that we understand it. And I think that we've obviously, with religion and society, we've kind of really changed what sex is and should be and can be, and so I'm not So I think we need to destigmatize a lot of sex.
I like it when
I-
it's stigma. No, I mean it. So here's the thing. So I think that some things that you destigmatize makes them less fun to do, because
sure.
part of the fun of that is of some things is the forbidden, and when it stops being forbidden, it loses an edge. It may not become not fun at all, but like some of it is like the fact that it seems you are raised to think it's wrong. That in some cases is what makes it hot. Not just straight vanilla sex, but just elements of it. Like spanking someone might be like, oh, this is considered risque. That's why it's fun to do, not because it's fun to lift your hand and lower it quickly.
I am. I get where you're coming from on that, and I think that there's validity to the idea of keeping a little bit
I'm
of
torn on it because I don't think
te-
it's like everything. I don't think that things should be considered, wrong. But at the
yeah.
same time, it's kind of hot when it's considered wrong.
Yeah. There's like the taboo element that we have, whether it's when you're underage and you want to drink, or sex. It's there is a taboo element that makes us desire it more, and I think that there is obviously a benefit to that in a personal level, like like the taboo makes it hotter or whatever. But then there's also the serious damage that taboo has done over history, as far as it has tabooing gay sex has caused all kinds of problems um, in in the world. Tabooing, um, I had a thought and my brain just farted. Um, like the idea of tabooing something is beneficial for it to be more erotic, but it's not necessarily the best thing, because we do have
Yeah,
you have stigma that comes along with it, and there's shame and there's guilt. Oh, and it also makes being predatory easier. I think that a lot of predatory, especially when you look at um, something along the lines of pedophilia, but it doesn't have to be that. Um, there's a the predatory nature of it can often, whether it does or doesn't necessarily, but like it preys on shame and guilt and the taboo. Especially historically, you've got, you know don't tell this person, don't tell anybody, because they're going to think that you're bad, that this happened, and then that allows that secrecy and that shame and that guilt and that taboo kind of create a real hotbed for terrible evil behavior.
yeah, but being
Not that
naughty is fun. No, but I
no
agree.
no
That's what I'd say. Like it's hard, like because it's kind of like if everything is totally acceptable and allowable, then you lose something, but it's something that's probably worth losing.
right, yeah. I think that, and I think that there, we there's always going to be a good side and a bad side to everything, and yeah. But ultimately, the taboo nature can still, there is still going to be some taboo nature there. Like, we're not, if we destigmatized all forms of consensual sex, we're still most likely not going to be in a society where you can just go do it in the park or on the sidewalk, or at a, it's not going to, so there's going to be a place for it, and that place for it makes there be other taboos. So like, oh, it's 11 o'clock at night, and me and my you know consensual aged partner are gonna go into this park that we know is fairly secluded at night, or we're gonna park the car somewhere, and those are would be
Where?
in that.
Where are you parking the car, Mike? I need to know where you're parking the car.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm so against parked car sex that I haven't. I
See,
don't have a spot. So, but I'm not against it for myself. I'm not against it for everybody. But the point being, like, there are other ways in which we can enjoy the edge of a taboo without the likelihood of victimization.
Right. I mean, I think it is worth giving up the naughty stuff as much as I will
Yeah.
miss the naughty stuff. But it's the same kind of thing of just even knowing what's supposed to be naughty so you can pretend. So like people who demean each other during sex, like, call people their partner demeaning things that they don't mean, they're just saying it during sex.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah,
remember a comedian saying like there are things that I'll let someone say to me when we're having sex that if they said to me on a date, I would, get a restraining order.
yeah,
And and it's like just to be able to say those things, like even if you don't really think they're bad, to pretend they are, because then it heightens it to use that aspect of it.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a fair point. I like it when I'm called a little bitch boy.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I call you a little bitch, but I didn't know you wanted to reveal that I call you that, but that's fine.
Yeah, yep. Um, Sorry, I'm referring to my notes again.
You have
What just
notes.
happened?
You have notes about being called bitch boy.
One thing I want to talk about too, in addition to, and I think that this kind of plays into the idea of taboo too, is hang-ups. And I think that hang-ups change a lot throughout our lives, especially, like I kind of, there's the old stereotype or joke of once a woman is married, she never has to perform oral sex again. Um, and so like there's a hang up that, apparent based on that premise, I would say that the hang up has always been there, but she was willing to do it um, before the marriage. But then on the opposite end, I think that it's more common for people to shed hang-ups as they go on, especially, you know, you've been with your partner for a long time and you're like, hey, if you want to try that, I don't know, that sounds doesn't sound like amazing to me, but we'll try that. And I think that hang-ups kind of and sometimes when you find out that something that you're like, oh, when I was 20 years old, there's no fucking way I would have done this, and now I'm 40 years old and I'll try it, and then there's a little bit of that taboo feeling. You think about, oh,
I
there's
remember
no way I would have put that in my mouth
I
20 years
remember
ago.
a line in a movie after a sexual act was being done in a comedy. Like, you live long enough, you're gonna do some weird shit.
What movie?
I don't remember exactly which movie it was. I just
Yeah,
remember that I feel like it was something that wasn't very good, but that one line stuck with me.
nice, nice. What do you agree with my assessment of hangups?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is to track where they come from and why we have different ones.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I'll go. I will say something personal as far as as far as me. This is not a me and it's just me in general. I am to some extent a germaphobe. And
I know I have to customize my cooking videos for you.
I know you do. You have to wash your hands
I
every
have to
fucking.
say that I washed my hands. I can't just edit it out. I have to say, I'm going to go wash my hands and be back. So before I edit out the hand washing.
But I'm as a bit of a germaphobe. It it has not really played, but like I will say that that's where most of my hangups when I was young started, and I think that I've shed a lot of those, and I'm still a germaphobe in many ways outside of sexuality, and so I think that like you kind of you know you learn and adjust and stuff from there, but I think um yeah,
So I know
I
it's
don't
not
want to I don't want to go
exactly
into detail.
I know it's not exactly germaphobe, but I used to work for a major pharma company, and one of our medicines was for herpes. And I didn't work on the herpes medicine per se, but I was an editor on promotion material, and I was the backup to the person who edited the herpes material. And when they were out on vacation, I had to work on their material, and I was working on, you know, at the same time, a patient brochure that was photographs of what herpes looks like on different parts of the body for men and women, very graphic photographs. And then another piece of material was something that talked about how 25% of people or something like that who are infected with the herpes virus don't know they are, and so they don't take any precautions in not spreading it. And I was like, I will never cheat on my wife ever. Like this is the ultimate. Show these two things to someone at the same time, and you will never cheat. Like you're monogamous.
Nice. Yep.
Yep, honey, it's
Um.
not because I love you. It's because disease scares me.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Let me Let me refer
Yeah.
to the notes again.
So I think it's interesting because having grown up in a very secular Jewish household, both those things, sex taboos are not as big as in well as in definitely as in religious Christian households, but even just moderately Christian households, I think there's more hang-ups about sex in generic mainstream Christianity than there is in American
Oh,
Judaism.
oh, for sure.
But even
Like,
like, for us, even like premarital sex is not a big deal. It was never a time that I was sexually active that my parents didn't know I was sexually active. There was the one of my favorite jokes was, and I hope my daughter's not watching the stream because she gets mad when I talk about my past. Um, there was this girl I was hooking up with at music festivals that we went to, but I was when I was 18 years old, I was with a girl who will say was legal in the state. We were both 18. Uh, that we were hooking up at music festivals that we would go to, that my family would go to, and my mother did not like her at all. And we're like leaving a music weekend where I had been basically in bed with this girl the entire weekend, and we get in the car and we're just leaving, and my mother says, "I'm not happy with you being with so and so. She's gonna hurt you. And she's not good for you." And she's like going on, and she spends like 5 minutes railing against this poor girl. And then I say, "Mom, I'm not in love with her. I'm just having sex with her." But I may have been more graphic than that. And she goes, "Oh, well, that's okay then."
nice.
So same experience you had with your mom, right?
No. So when you talk about Christianity, and we did the episode about purity culture, so I don't want to like rehash too much, but I would say that like Catholicism in New England is purity culture light. Um, we there is a purity culture aspect to being up there, but it's not the same as like we do only side hugs when we're in courtship. Like there's none of that. Like the what's the family from Arkansas, the Duggars. We're not like that, but there is like
I don't
a
think they have any limits on sex, the Duggars, as it turns out.
well just on consensual sex. They
Yeah,
have a limit on that. Um,
fair.
but yeah, so we weren't like that, but I will say that there is like a strong like do not have sex before marriage mentality pushed in a lot of the a lot of my life growing up to the point where when I would say we were about 7 or 8 days married, and I said to Sarah one day, I was like, I don't feel guilty or ashamed after sex, and she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, like we're married, and somehow like that went away,
And
and
it's
it's
the
because it
last
was
time
so
that we
built.
had sex. It wasn't fun
Yeah.
anymore.
No, now I feel just I feel I get my thrills other ways. Riding the Everest coaster at Animal Kingdom. That's how no, but I remember thinking that, and I've been like, oh, that's really fucked up, because like I had been with Sarah for 4 years almost. Like there was no reason why that arbitrary line should fix the problem, but it had been so ingrained in me that crossing that line did finally like, oh, this doesn't feel. I don't feel the sense of dread afterwards that like I'm going to get in trouble or whatever. And keep in mind at that point I was still semi-religious, so
Yeah, it's a funny because I talk to atheists about their coming out of religion stories. I'm like, I wish I knew what that was like because I never really had. I mean, we had Judaism for fun in our house. It wasn't believed, and I feel the same way about sexual hangups. Like, I wish I had sexual hangups when I was a kid. I don't know what it's like to have that because again, like it wasn't a taboo subject in the house, so I never grew up with any taboo hangups about stuff. Like the limits
so
are what my partner says the limits are. You know,
well, I'm going to ask you something, and you can answer as vaguely or as you can just not answer at all, depending on how
whatever I
you
want.
feel about it. without hangups. So I think hangups can often create fetishization or kinks. Do you so without hangups, do you think that you don't have to answer what? You don't have to answer any like but do you think that you without the taboo and without the hangups, do you think you formed anything in those?
Um, I think definitionally nothing that's a fetish.
Okay.
'Cause
We should
but
probably define the
I would say
difference
for
for the
kinks, I think you need
audience.
to define what you mean by fetish and kinks really to answer. But I don't
So,
think I have any interests that are outside of mainstream interests or obsessively over other interests that make them fall into a either category.
yeah. So I saw a definition online, and in the last few days, I think we should use this definition, which was a kink is something that you consider out of the norm. So not necessarily like weird, but like not missionary, not P and V, like just kind of something that's a little, you know, a little less vanilla.
Yeah. So I
Whereas
think,
a fetish,
and I feel like, I mean, there's nothing that I like that is so out of the norm that you wouldn't go, oh yeah, well everybody wants to do that, or would want to do that or have that. And there's nothing that I need to have. So to me, part of that is that
right?
I can't get off unless you spank me. Like
Well, and
and there's
that
nothing
was
like
why
that.
they
Yeah,
that was how they defined the fetish
yeah.
was anything that you need in order to feel satisfied, basically.
I need a gentle breeze, frankly. That's all it takes.
You have a gentle breeze fetish.
I was thinking of the Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours. When it's like, I've been in prison for 10 years. I get a hard on if the wind blows hard. And that's
Nice.
not the exact
I,
quote, but it was something like that. Just a
mhm.
gentle breeze is all it takes.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Anyway, I just was curious because of the lack of
Yeah,
hang-ups.
I
Yeah.
don't I feel like I don't have the flip side of a hang up that it was a hang up and now it's an obsession kind of thing. I don't yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I have any fetishes, but I certainly have kinks. Um, but that's about as far as I want to go into that. Yeah, no, but I do think when I look at without getting into the detail, when I look at my hangups and I look at my kinks, I feel there's a correlation to some extent between them. So
Yeah, which goes back to what I said at the beginning, right? If there's not some taboo about sometimes the taboo around something makes it more enjoyable on the other end.
yeah,
And
I can
maybe,
make a taboo for you, Matthew. I do not want you to do blah blah blah.
okay, I will not do blah blah blah. I don't know how often blah 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 comes up, but fine. Gonna be on a date with my wife one night. I'm like, honey, and she's like, if you say blah blah blah, Mike is gonna come after you. Don't say it.
Yeah.
Oh. Watching Arrested Development, I can't talk about blah blah blah's law blog.
Yeah. All right. So I kind of talked about the difference between fetishization and kinks.
Let's
Oh,
go to
I
the
do
sex
think
list.
my sex list. No, I haven't. The I do think fetishization and kinks are worth talking about separately too, in the fact that, and more so fetishization. Um, I think fetishization can be problematic. In outside of having a fetish, there's also the concept of fetishization. We talk about this a lot with types. Um, as a I think that the common thing that the thing that pops into my head when we talk about like problematic fetishization is you know Asian women, or like a group of like
There's
this is
one Asian woman I'm really into.
yes, no, I'm aware, but my point being like there
Honey, I'm
is
talking about you if you're watching. You're the Asian woman I love, honey. I love you.
yes. I, and honey is vague enough that it could be any number of honeys.
Seven. The number is seven.
Yeah, but you understand what I'm saying. Like that one pops into mind a lot because I feel like it's a common thread, and so like you having an attraction to Asian women, or and I think you've said before that it's more an attraction to non-white women, right? Or is
No,
it
I mean,
specifically Asian?
I, I, I find things attractive about many women. I think one of the things is I don't when I'm what's not my favorite thing necessarily is the classic, um, Shakespearean ideal porcelain skin, blonde
Yep.
hair thing. So, and since that's not my thing, women with darker skin tones are more just as more attractive skin tone to me, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that I haven't been with blonde women. I mean, when I was young,
Right.
I was, whoever was interested in me, I was interested in.
Right.
But but it's like, but it's not like I don't have an objectification of this type of person is an object that I am attracted to. It's just like,
Right.
I like,
Right.
if someone gets a nice tan, I like a dark tan better than I like pale skin
Yeah.
where I can see blood vessels bursting underneath it. That's just me.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a fair way of drawing the distinction. We need to like like I think most people have some form of a type, and a type isn't a problem if and it's kind of similar to the difference between a kink and a fetish anyway. The idea of like a fetish is something you need, and a kink is something that yeah, it's like my type is
O
if
negative.
I don't actually know my blood type. Like if I were to pick,
Mine's O
take
positive. If anyone
take
needs some blood, I'm O positive.
take Sarah out of the equation. Is before I meet her, you ask me describe your ideal woman. It would be the comic book version of Mary Jane Watson, or the cartoon version of the Little Mermaid,
So,
redhead, like
but like that's a
you know,
combination that doesn't exist. Like redhead with that is still pale skin without not creamy skin, not freckles. Like it's none of the other
yeah,
attributes that generally genetically go with red hair. It's like
right,
artificial red hair. I want someone
right,
who
but
dyed their hair red.
right. But like that was what I would describe as my type. I've literally never, well, like you just pointed out, I've never that person doesn't exist. But uh, but like the people that are closest to that in my
Is that
life, like
is that
I've
Medusa on your shirt, by the way? On the top of the D over Daredevil? Can't see quite right.
I
Small
think
screen.
it's Spider Woman, isn't it?
I mean, I can't see real well. Oh, okay, so I just want to see which redhead it is that's on your shirt. Which
Yeah,
is like the
uh,
most common thing. The place where there's the highest concentration of attractive redheads is comic books. Like that,
yeah,
like there's so many more redheads per capita in comic books than there are in real life. It's insane because
right.
it's a good color that it looks good on the page.
Yeah, it looks good in real life too. I like the look of redheaded women a lot in real life as well. Like it's a different color, typically a different complexion than the cartoon and comic book version of it, but I like redheaded women. But that I wouldn't say that's my like that is the type that if I were to like, you know, pick from a catalog, that's what I would pick, but I've never dated anybody that's a redhead. Um I Sarah likes to joke that my type in women is big teeth. Um,
Nice.
yeah, she after several me pointing out like women in commercials that were attractive, she's like they all are like mousy. I'm like they're not mousy, and she's like, well, they all have big teeth, and I'm like they just have prominent teeth. I don't want like a little, like little like baby teeth. You've seen people with baby teeth, and you're like,
I don't know. My
but
wife
like
has baby teeth.
I haven't noticed.
See, I'm looking at my wife's mouth. Always
Yeah.
talk about generations of vegetarianism. She doesn't have big chompers to tear into meat.
Hmm, okay. I like carnivorous women. No, I don't know. It was not something that I even realized. It was something Sarah pointed out. But yeah, so like and I think when we talk about type, that is a different thing than fetishization. I think fetishization also I think is sometimes like, oh, I find this look attractive and I want to again I'm gonna go with Asian women here for a second because I think it's a common problem we see is men want
I think
not only
there's
do they
a
want a woman.
I think there's another creepier reason that so many men say they like Asian women. I think it's
Okay.
because um, a lot, not all, but a lot of Asian women can look younger than their age, and it's a way to
Okay.
like underage looking women who aren't legally underage. And I say that
Okay.
because being at a strip club one day when this Asian girl was asking if she could dance for me, and I was like, no, I just don't feel comfortable because she looked like she was 14 to me, and I was like, I just don't feel comfortable. I was like, if you can get that one over there to come over, that'd be great. She looks beautiful, but so I feel like some people are the opposite of me. They're like, she looks young, that's why I'm into her as much.
Well, I think like there's the alpha male guy, but I don't think that that's a racial thing as much. And I think that when you're a woman who wants an alpha male, it's you're having some other fetishization, there, and I'm sure
Go ask
whatever
Sarah. Why is she so into you? What's her fetish about alpha men that makes her want uh, your toxic masculinity so much?
I was about to say, oh, I was about to say, I've never been called. Matthew's never said anything nice like that about me on the podcast, and then I was like, oh no, no,
Oh, he's
it's
being
because alpha male
sarcastic.
is insulting. Yeah, because I think being alpha male is insulting, but you started calling me one, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm an alpha male. He called me an alpha male. Uh, no,
I mean, I look at you and I see Andrew Tate. I just don't say.
yeah, I think I'm more like Andrew Taint. Uh, I've been wanting to make that joke forever.
I'm so happy I could be here to set you up unintentionally.
Yeah.
It's,
Um,
one day someone's going to say I'm like Andrew Tate and I can say this. It's going to happen.
have you guys, speaking of alpha male stuff, but have you guys seen the the picture of Andrew Tate without his facial hair? I'm gonna find it, but it's like this, how who decided this man is the like peak alpha male, because he's got like no chin. He literally looks like a cartoon drawing of a Koopa Troopa or something. Uh I'm looking it up right now because it was Andrew Tate. Alpha meme. I don't really want this in my. I don't. Okay, I will send you the meme, but he's got that like look to him, and it says, "I don't know how dudes can sit there and call themselves the alpha male when he's literally the anchovy blueprint." And it's from SpongeBob.
Okay, it's a
Let's see
little
if I can.
blurry. Get your focus on.
Yeah, I will share it in the notes. I'm gonna see if I can share it to you guys real quick. Um, but yeah, it's such a ridiculous thing. Anyway, so no fetishes, no fetishization. I'm glad. I'm glad that we. I'm glad that my what I was just starting to describe as fetishization sounded so bizarre. Because that means that I'm off the mark, and that's probably a good thing. Because I not that I had that, but I thought that that's what other people felt like. I felt like there was this weird, and I think that you're probably right when you say that it's about them looking young. I think there's also,
I'm
and
not saying
this
it's the only reason. I just feel like that's one of the reasons.
I also wonder if there is, and this probably would be like, if we looked deep into it, it would probably be like, oh yeah, that's also young, but like if it's about a guy wanting to feel bigger, like not penis size, but like I am
Liking
bigger
small
than a
women
lot.
so
I'm
they
bigger
can be
than
a big.
most
Yeah.
women. So, like next to like a shorter, thin woman, I'm probably like a giant. You know what I mean? Like so that we're revealing a lot of weird shit
I,
about me.
yeah, I, I haven't considered height as a prerequisite, except for this one time when I was doing a comedy show and I asked for a volunteer from the audience, and this young lady came up out of the audience, and she went around the side of the stage to come up on stage, and I was explaining to the audience what was going to happen next, and then I turned to her, and this was in Chapel Hill. She was on the UNC women's basketball team, and she was over 6 feet tall. And when I turned, we were eye to eye. And I have never been standing up and been eye to eye with a woman since like seventh grade, you know.
Yeah.
And I literally stopped talking, and I had to physically turn my face to face the audience again so I could talk. I was totally speechless.
I worked with this guy, and I'm going to do a voice that is very accurate. Sarah can attest to it later. I'm going to do his impression of him, but I worked with this guy, great, really good guy, who was, I would say, between your and my height, so at least 6 feet, probably 6 foot one or two. Um, and he was a couple years older than me. We were working one day, and this really tall but very attractive woman came in, and he gives me like a swat on the shoulder, and he goes, "Mike, I would go up on her." And I was like, Sarah and I and I was already dating Sarah when this happened, and I went home and told her that day. Sarah and I say it every once in a while to each other. I would go up on her. You're both welcome to use that, but you have to use the voice.
I I'm 6'4". It would be find it hard to find a woman who it's appropriate to say with.
Giraffe.
Oh man,
Look at the tongue on.
giraffes. Look how blue that tongue is.
Gross.
I'm gonna make that giraffe make no noise.
Do they not make noise during sex?
I don't think they make noise at any time. I mean, I haven't checked sex specifically. I just
Well,
don't believe they're a noise-making thing. They would have to have really, really long vocal cords.
yeah. Do you remember? Did you watch
I'm worried about
South
what the
Park?
next thing is.
South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut.
30 years ago, I don't remember the details anymore.
There's one part where the French Canadian resistance guy he's like asking for a bunch of stuff, and he goes, "When if you hear me make the sound of a dying giraffe, I will need your help." And they were like, "What's a dying giraffe sound like?" And he goes, "Wow." and then he goes, it's just an absolute silly character, and he's like, "I need 2 sticks of dynamite, a 2x4, or 2 sticks of dynamite, a plastic cartridge, and a butt for." And then someone goes, "What's a butt for?" "For pooping, silly."
I should say giraffes like they snort and I think they hum, but they don't do vocalizations the same way that most other animals do. Like there's no like moo or meow or bark. Like they don't have common vocalizations. Don't. Okay, send me letters. Go ahead, put comments. Put as many comments in the chat as you want that I was wrong about giraffes not making sound during sex. They like to go. Just go ahead, say it. You guys are experts. I know you all know what you're talking about.
Our zoology fandom is going to be huge, and they're going to be like, "This guy is a dickhead
Yeah,
for
I'm not worried about.
suggesting that giraffes do not
It's
make
not
noise when
the
they fuck."
zoologists. It's the zoophiles I'm looking to offend there. Want to hear my theory about giraffes?
Sure.
They're dragons.
Yeah, you've told me that.
Okay, everybody. I don't really mean they're dragons. I mean like that. I think like medieval descriptions of dragons could have been people who journeyed to Africa, saw giraffes from a distance, and thought the spots were scales in the long snake-like neck, and maybe they were running in a cloud of dust and they couldn't see their feet from where they were, so it looked like they were flying. I could see, and if you've ever been up close to a giraffe, their necks are very serpentine. They're not like we draw it as a kid and we draw them hard and straight, but they're only hard and straight when they're very excited. Otherwise, they're more flaccid. So I could see where people could have mistakenly created dragon myths from having seen giraffes. That's been my theory for a long time. Ever since the first time I was at a like petting zoo that had a baby giraffe and it like snaked its neck over and their head is kind of dragon shaped. Just saying.
I'm actually the cousin of Godzilla because I spit fire and my dick is dragon.
Well, that's all we have time for this week, everyone.
Nice. Let me just double check. Let me go to the notes. Um, Jesus, Trello just keeps like fucking getting buried. Oh yeah, no, I didn't have any other bullets. So at 30, I know that we've been recording for 48, but we did nothing for the first 5. So we need to do at least 15 more minutes, 20 more minutes.
Oh, you sure there's nothing left on your list?
Yeah, I think so. Why?
I just want to make sure you're not missing something. Make sure you got your whole thing done.
We share a Trello board on for this, and Matthew put on Dick Dragon joke.
Oh, we can check that off. You got that one done.
Yeah,
Oh, you did
and
check it off. Good.
you you like dragon? I'm gonna be dragging these nuts across your face. Oh, there was a video of a Norman Osborn action figure to one of the Peter Parkers, and it was, Peter, help me! I have the Mind Goblin. What's the Mind Goblin, Mister Osborn? Mind Goblin these nuts. And I said it to I showed it to Logan, and we were laughing so hard. Actually, I do want to talk.
So
That's
now that you're
something.
talking about parenting, and what kind of taboos are you raising your son with to give him a hang up that he could talk to his therapist about?
Well, that, actually, I did want to talk about. That is a good transition. Not specifically what you said, but I think that one of the things
Out
that
of all
we
the things I could have said, you're worried about that? All the things I could have said, come on.
no,
That was
I think.
beautiful.
So did you read or see where the crawdads live? Or
No, but my wife is a big fan.
okay,
So I
great
know the
book.
so I know the title. I know the title because my wife references it.
It's a great book. It's a mediocre movie. It couldn't have been a good movie just because of, but like a huge part of that book is she is she becomes an expert in animals, the animals of the marsh in North Carolina, and it's about her understanding animal nature while growing up. And so we see, her following she's not raised within religion, she's not raised really within society, and she sees animal nature, and so we see her sexuality in the book developing in a more natural way without the like without some of it. There's some of societal push because obviously she has it's sexuality, so she's having relationships with guys that are from society, but she's not really, so it doesn't have the same hangups and situations. And I thought that it was interesting because there is a sense of there's a natural sexuality, I think, that happens that we suppress beyond just the religious things, but because I think we have this fear of of and I don't want to say like we have a fear of childhood sexuality, but like it's
Yeah, I mean,
you know
a kid starts rubbing their elbow, you don't care. They rub their head, you don't care. They put their hair in the pants, and you're like, oh no, you don't do that.
right, right, and you get like it's not like I talking to, I don't know what the average age for puberty or masturbation is, but like
No,
you
masturbation,
know
infancy, puberty's a little later.
no, but like because the reason I don't know the averages because when I would talk to friends, I would get wild numbers. I would get some of them talking about like
Well, that's how
you know
averages work. See, they all have different numbers, and you add them, and then
yes,
you
yes, yes.
divide by the amount.
Well, when I say wild numbers, I'm like I don't know that I believe all their numbers. Um, like, but the
I'd
point
say
being
it's
like there is
between 10 and 13, depending on if you're talking boys and girls and what
okay,
level of puberty you're talking about. Let's say that
and
area.
and
Double
in
digits.
I fall in the average, but I I've talked to many people who were like talking about being sexually active at like very very single digit, well not very young single digits, but single digits,
I
and
had crushes when I was like I would get in
yeah
trouble for chasing girls around the playground in first and second grade. Not that I knew what I was going to do if I could catch them, but I was
yeah
like, while other guys were like, ew, cooties, we want to go play ball. I was like, no, I want to chase her. I want to be with her. And just
yeah
didn't know what that was.
I had the same. It was a much more not. It was as far as I'm concerned, it was non-sexual up until. but like, but then you get to the point where you're 12, 13. By 12, definitely by 12. I was getting. I was in full blown puberty. Like I had facial hair, and I was getting erections, and so you have and eventually nature finds a way. You figure out how to do it without instruction or anything else. I figured out how
With a dinosaur?
to how to take care of it, and I think that we have, as a society, we really are uncomfortable with that, and so that's why we, beyond just the religious side of things, a lot of people, even if it is semi-religiously founded, they're not clear. There's no clear. It's an
Well,
indirect.
like parents who don't give their kids privacy, like intentionally say don't close your door, or they won't knock on doors because they want their kids to
Oh yeah,
not be sexual because they want to be able to. You might be caught in the act, as opposed to give them their privacy so that they're allowed to do what they need to do to explore themselves.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, absolutely.
Give your kid a fleshlight. Come on.
Yeah, flesh. No, I think that there is
Sorry,
a
should I not use a trademark term to say you're worried you're going to
this
get
episode
demonetized?
this episode of
Brought
talking
to
about
you
the
by
big stuff is brought to you by Adam and Eve.
Big
um,
Stuff at checkout.
yeah. Um, no, I think that there is like
We need to get them as a sponsor so that could be our coupon code.
big stuff at checkout. Yeah, well,
Type in Big Stuff
keep
at
on
checkout.
pushing the podcast to your friends and family. Um,
Keep on pushing will be the catchphrase we use for Adam and Eve with your friends and family.
this would have been the perfect episode for them to be a sponsor. I what were we talking about? Children?
You were talking about children
Oh
and Adam and Eve, the products. I don't know why.
no, uh, but I think that we get, we beyond just the obvious religious push to not have sex education. There is, it's probably indirect, but it's still a push to not have sex education for children. There's and we're at an age where everything is sexualizing the kids, and it's like I like you talk about drag queen story, or I talk about a bunch of other things. Well, yeah,
Yeah, but they're
we
only concerned
watching
if
the
they're
Super
sexualizing
Bowl.
them in a direction they don't want them being sexualized in. The fact
Yeah,
like they're exposed to, know, sex in the media
yeah,
everywhere, like that's fine.
yeah.
Paris Hilton is selling Hardee's cheeseburgers by having oral sex with the cheeseburger, like that's fine. But if it was a drag person in drag, then it would be bad.
Right. But again, and obviously that falls into, and this is, I guess, semi about sexuality and semi not about sexuality, but like that falls into the concept of the, I forget the term that I saw for it, but it's basically the standard where, if you read a book and you're the unless said otherwise, you were to assume that the character is white. Like, and that's like a common thing, like that people have kind of assumed. And I guess I'm forgetting her name, but I bought the book when I found out that this was the case. There's an author who wrote a book where the only time she specifies is if it's not like, oh, this person is white, and then everybody else is black. But we have like a what we as a culture have determined as, like, if you don't say it, it's the default. That's,
Mm-hmm.
we have a default, and I think when you talk about sexuality in that way, there is a set of default where, like, oh, I didn't even think that bringing my kid to Hooters was sexualizing, them, and
So,
I didn't.
so I brought my kids to Hooters when they were young, and Jacob liked hot wings, so we went to Hooters for hot wings when he was like 13 years old, 12 or
Yep.
13, and it was so funny because like on the TV screens is like extreme sports. So there's like BMX dirt bikes on the TV, and watching Jacob crane his neck to look around the waitress to see the TV because she was in his way was the funniest. And Joseph, who
You
was
get those
younger,
giant tits out of my face. I want to see the TV.
it's exactly what it was. And Joseph, who was younger, was much more aware of the girls, so he was embarrassed and looking away from them the whole time. But Jacob was like actively trying to get like you're in the way.
Yeah, yeah, and like I don't mean that to say like you can't do that. I'm just saying, like, there's that people don't necessarily even think about when it's what they consider the default. And for some of us, that's white hetero, and but and typically we've just
Yeah, it's like
assumed.
when people get upset when someone of color or a different ethnicity or a specific ethnicity, whatever, is cast in a movie, and people get upset saying
Yeah,
that's not who I pictured. Well, did it say otherwise? Like, because they went by the default. In my head, it was a white person because that's what I pictured, even if
Yep.
it didn't say. And even in the case of Hunger Games, where Rue, people were upset that a black girl played the character Rue, but in the book, the description was she had light brown skin. Or they said something about, her being like a light skin or something like that, but it was clearly saying
Ashen or yeah,
but it was clearly that they were saying that she was a person of color but light skinned. It was clearly the description, but it was in one place, so people didn't notice it. They just went right past it
yeah,
because they had already pictured in her head what she looked like. It was like when she was hurt, and she goes, her pale, her light brown skin, blah 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 blah, and it was like they already pictured her, so they ignored those words, but they were
right,
mad at who was cast when the casting fit the description.
yeah. I had a conversation today at work on lunch, but we were talking about uh, it was the it was a TikToker who is non-binary who was asking her follower or their followers, about whether or not what they thought about the fact that they're not non-binary and they may switch between male and female pronouns throughout the year and or day to day and see how and how do you think that will be for the kids and so the person at work was asking me because she's not a parent and she's like, what do you think? And I said honestly, I think switching back and forth day to day or switching around day to day may be complicated. Now, if you said I'm non binary, you may refer to me as Mr. or Mrs. or him or her. Like if there was that, I would have no problem. But the switching, the preference, but so frequently that I think that a kindergartner, I think that's what she was talking about, the coworker, not the non-binary person. I think that they were teaching kindergarten, and so it was not. I just think it's too young to understand jumping back and forth on the terminology. But I said, but I have no problem. I have no problem with a
I mean, I
non-binary
think if you're
person or trans person teaching my kid. And then we started talking about the idea of like, well, you know, I forget how it came up, and I said, well, to me, you just hold the same standard. I will talk to Logan about gender or sexuality the same across the board. At this point in his life, we don't get into details. I don't be like, "Oh, you stick a penis in a vagina" or whatever. You
what
just like when
kind
we're
of
talking
weird
about
fetish is that?
yeah, I know it's gross hetero shit. Um, but when we were, we just when we talk about kind of more romantic love with Logan when we're talking to him because he's at an age where we're not giving him a lot. I mean, he knows that sex is a thing, but he doesn't know what the details are. He thinks it's related to kissing and
Cousins, kissing
and
cousins. Eh.
uh, and and I said, and so I think that if you hold that same standard across the board, and then next year he might be a little further in, and we might talk a little more about a little more detail about heterosexual relationships, and so if it came up, I wouldn't have any problem doing the same thing with homosexual relationships, or if we're talking about gender, like ultimately there's certain things with gender that we're not going to talk to him about, whether it's a cis person or a trans person or a non-binary person. And we were talking about how that's how you have to, like, I think that's the right way to do it, is to say, yeah, like, and the example she gave, and I kind of doubled down on this, was it you shouldn't, they say that you shouldn't be talking too much about your personal life or your sex life with children when you're a teacher. But ultimately, if I'm teaching, I'm a teacher right now, and I go say to my students like, oh, my wife and I went to the movies this weekend, versus if a gay person is a teacher and they say, oh, me and my husband went to the movies this weekend. It's the same information.
Neither
You
of those is
can,
about sex unless you're going to different movies than I went to.
yeah, but like, yes, but the point being, like, you're
Yeah, well, it was the thing like when they don't say gay bills in Florida, they can't do anything that talks about gender or orientation. We're like, well, then you can't say husband or wife in anything because that implies a gender, and
yeah,
if you say husband and wife, that's an orientation. Like you can't, like they're going by the default. Like, no, you can say the default one, you just can't say
yeah,
the other ones is what. But they didn't write it that way. So really it became nobody can say anything. But like I think that even changing pronouns is probably easier for a kid than for an adult because like the hardest thing about things like that is I'm used to things not changing. I'm used to someone having
Yeah,
one set of pronouns not changing. Where if kids can handle good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, it changes throughout the day. They could handle changing pronouns if they were raised with it. If they get it
sure.
early enough, it wouldn't be out of the normal for them to understand it.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
I mean, I think our problem is we were raised too much with a system, which made it hard to change the system. And the more progressive you are, and the more you make the effort, the more you learn that now it's not a problem for me to say they because I got used to saying it because I just made sure I did it all the time with my friend who wants me to do that way. But if I have one coworker who sometimes they like to use feminine pronouns and sometimes they like to use they and them, and she they is like gotta kind of ask me. It's different in different days, and people are like, well, that's not fair to us. I'm like, it's not about you, first of all, but also,
Yeah,
really, how often do you use someone's pronouns to their face? Like, really, it's
sure.
you're talking about the person. They're not there generally. So, I mean,
Yeah,
try to use the one that people want to be used and be the most respectful as you can be. But like,
yeah,
even changing ones don't like. What do you prefer more often? That's what I'll use more often generically, because I'm not going to call you on the phone and say, yeah, I'm about to reference you in a conversation with somebody else. What should I say as I reference you?
yeah. Let me ask you this. This is not. This is just kind of going off based on what you were just talking about. Not, and we're getting further and further away from sex, but I'm okay with that for the moment. This was something I thought of the other day, and I was like, and you just kind of hit it, and I wanted to ask:
Hey, hitting it is
is there
completely about
a
sex.
is there a gender neutral version or equivalent to sir or ma'am? Because I think we need one. Like that is where we should absolutely have like pronouns. I'm not saying no on pronouns. I try
Yeah,
really
yeah.
hard to respect people's pronouns, but
There's not a formal word. Like
right,
when I do speeches at work, I tend to say ladies, gentlemen, coworkers, and friends.
you're right.
Because it covers everything. Coworkers and friends covers everyone. But there's
Yeah.
no ladies and gentlemen level.
Well,
People say friends, but that's very informal. Like
yeah,
there's no formal word that is in common usage. There probably is, but it's
yeah.
probably in very limited usage of people who
I
are.
think we should make it common usage because I
Yeah,
think it it's the one that is needed. I forget where I was, but I ran into somebody who I was not sure of their gender recently, and it was like it was in a service situation where they were helping me. I feel like it was the grocery store. I can't remember where it was, and I was like, "This would be. I need like a gender neutral sir, so or ma'am, so I can say that instead of saying sir and find out that she's a woman, or ma'am and finding out he's a guy." And I was like, this would be a really helpful spot to have a gender neutral term, but
yeah. Especially like formal, because like I say, I use the term, when I'm making announcements at work, team members or friends included, like with, but it's and
it
informally,
works with plural. It definitely works with plural
yeah,
amount
yeah,
of
but I
people.
guess, but it's not, but it's also, I had to go to a less formal, like ladies and gentlemen is
Hmm.
formal, and team members and friends is less formal. You had to get to a less formal word, and that's a
Ladies and
challenge.
sperms.
I know a lot of like podcast listeners who just say friends. They refer to friends, but like that's not formal. Like that's a nice informal thing, and that's lovely, but it
Yeah,
doesn't take the place of is there a formal way to do it? And I'm sure there are words that have been proposed, but nothing that has taken a mainstream position
we
yet.
need to make something stick, and we can just start using
It
it
is
on.
sticky sometimes.
We need to make a term. We need to make it stick, and we need to. And maybe the way to make it stick is start using it with cis people. And I'll just call you
I mean, you can say gentle person
Sam.
or gentle
No, I was
people.
gonna say Sam, sir, man, mixed together, but that's just my sister. Uh,
I mean,
but
you could say gentle people, gentle person.
I kind of hate that.
Instead of gentleman or gentlewoman.
I don't want to call anybody a gentleman or a gentlewoman either. All right,
I call a lot of people Gentile man and Gentile woman. That's a term I use a lot.
nice. So, do you have any last thoughts on sex?
Uh, um, my last thoughts, like after we do the call to action last thoughts, just a general last thought.
Oh my God. So
Yep. It's nice when the things you do fast are recognized as a benefit instead of a deficit.
yeah, especially right after sex. Um. Anyway, so I think we've got enough for a podcast now. All right. Do you have anything before we start doing
No, let's wrap
the?
this shit up.
Okay. If you're watching us live right now, are we still live on Facebook and YouTube? Did we have any issues, Alex? Um, I can see him coming on. Perfect. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube,
Right
please
now.
like us
Uh,
on that. Yeah. Give us a share, a like, whatever that,
Comment.
comment.
The algorithm
Just,
loves the comments. Tell us your fetish. Tell the world your fetish.
yeah. Or your kink, because they are different. But if you're listening to this not live, please go into your podcast app of choice and give us a thumbs up or a like or whatever you feel like doing. Oh, the camera's. Oh, I think my camera's about to shut off.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, as you said, follow our YouTube channel, like this video, turn on the bell so you can know when new videos are released, make comments on all our videos. Go back and do all the old ones. It helps the algorithm. If you're
Yep.
one of those mainstream iPhone users and you're using um, your iPhone to listen to the audio of this podcast through iTunes, that's great. That's wonderful. Do that. Subscribe to it there. Hey, when I say subscribe, they actually, besides just following it, they have a subscribe feature that for a mere $1, you can get the podcast 4 days early, Monday instead of Friday. So you can do that right there on the Apples there. If you use some other system or you just don't like iTunes and you're using some other podcatcher, that's great. If there's a way to like us or rate us or comment us on it there, go ahead and do it. If there's not, you know what you can do? You can go to patreon.com/ talking about the big stuff, and you can pay that same dollar that you would on Apple to get the episode 4 days early. Or because Patreon's a little fancier, you could pay $3, go up to the next level, and you get a less edited version than we're going to release on the $1 and the Friday fee. We leave a little more of the dirty stuff in. And if you really like the dirty stuff, if you want to hear all the stuff that I say that makes Mike say, oh no, I need to edit that out. Someone I met once might listen to this. Then you want to go to the $10 tier, and you get the $10 tier, you're going to be talking about us to your therapist. It's a good deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and if we get enough $10 tiers, if we get enough patrons in general, we're gonna
Get
have
a camera that
a.
doesn't turn itself off.
Hey, it's been an hour. It's been on an hour. It's just it
Yeah,
didn't.
it's just like when he's having sex. Oh, it's been an hour. It's not my fault I can't do it anymore.
Sorry, it's starting to bleed. It's chafing.
Smell of,
Uh,
hate the smell of burning rubber.
yeah. Anyway, I guess since you did all that, I'll do the outro quote, and I just want to say thank you all for talking about our big stuff. I thought that was appropriate.
That's about where I was going to go with it.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.